Greetings, Wilkinson here. Today my guest is Stewart Wade from where in Oregon?
Eugene, Oregon.
Is it Eugene or Eugene? I always get that mixed up.
I've heard people say it both ways. I'm not sure.
Anyway.
I think they're both correct.
Anyway, say hi to my people, Stuart.
Hi, people.
So Stuart, what, about a year? Let's see, I'm going back. I think I found his first film about a year ago, and all he was a name on the screen. That's what he was. And then I stalked him.
He stalked me on social media.
And I did a couple reviews and blah, blah, blah. And then we started chatting, and then on Facebook became friends. And he's here in the flesh in Palm Springs for his movie premiere here in Palm Springs, which was great.
Thank you.
So you done a lot of stuff, huh?
I've done a few things.
Yeah.
I always feel like I should be doing more.
So we're going to talk about your life. Let's go back. You're sitting here just so, because people can't see because we're not on video.
Right.
His husband, Ruben, is sitting here.
Yes.
Ruben, say hi. Yell hi from where you are. Hello. Okay, there he is. So he's joined us. I wanted him in here. So Stuart, obviously you're gay. You're married to a gay guy.
Let's talk. So
yeah, let's talk a little about your life. We started out there, and I thought, let's just go back to the room and record this. So.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I was raised in Southern California in a pretty liberal environment. My mom was kind of a hippie. I was raised in a cloud of pot smoke, and she had pretty much she was a bit of a pothead. My stepfather was a real pothead, but they had gay friends. They were very kind of open-minded people, and so I didn't grow up with a lot of shame and things that I think a lot of gay people of my generation did. So I was very lucky that way. But still,
So you didn't have the conservative Baptist background.
Didn't have the conservative background. But still, it was the 1970s. It was,
right.
I didn't really have gay role models, at that point. The people you saw in the media, Billy Crystal on Soap, they were very flamboyant, and I didn't really, that wasn't me. But still, initially I thought I was bisexual because I did have a girlfriend when I was 15, and we did fool around a little, of course. But it was pleasurable. Of course, at 15,
15.
Stiff breezed, But yeah. So initially I thought I was bisexual, and then by the time I was like 16, 17, I was like, no, I really am just gay. It wasn't a huge trauma, and luckily, even coming out to my grandparents, who of course much older generation. They didn't really understand it, but they were accepting and loving, and nobody ever shunned me, or if they had negative things to say, they did it behind my back at least.
Right. So go back to when you were 12. You started telling me that part of her.
Yeah. So
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and of course at 12 I was just starting to have these feelings, and I certainly wasn't talking about them to anybody, and I would have thought that I was completely under the radar. But when my mom sat me down for the Birds and the Bees talk, she presented it as, someday you're going to grow up and you'll fall in love, and whether it's a man or a woman, or I think she said woman first. But anyway, she included both as options, which, when I look back at the time, that was, clearly she had a clue. And that was incredibly progressive for,
right.
1975, I think it was. So,
right.
Yeah. So I was very lucky that way.
But you didn't say anything to her at that moment.
I didn't, because I was very confused. And then later, when it was starting to clear up in my mind, she was ill. And I just thought, even though I know she wouldn't reject me, there was a part of me that thought she'll be worried. She'll be, worried that I'll have an unhappy life. And she's got enough on her mind with her illness. And I didn't want to talk about it with her, even though as soon as she passed away, I regretted it. I was like, God, I wish I'd come out, but
so
too late.
She had cancer or something like that, or
nah, she had an autoimmune disease. That's a whole long sad story. She actually ended up committing suicide.
Really?
Yeah. Very sad. So yeah, my life hasn't all been rainbows and roses, but I do feel, despite that, I still feel very lucky to have had her as a mother, because she was very loving and accepting, and really laid the foundation for me to have a happy life despite what happened to her.
Were you an only child?
I wanted to be. No, that's me. And I hope my sister doesn't listen to this. I do have a sister, a younger sister, but we are very different, and we were not close growing up. We were she's 3 years younger, and she was always just kind of the pesky little sister that always wanted to hang around, and I just didn't want her to, and yeah, never really close. And then as an adult, she had a lot of issues that, we can get into that maybe if you like. I think I mentioned that I ended up adopting a child.
Right.
It was her child. She had a son that she couldn't care for. She was involved in an abusive relationship and lost her parental rights, and I ended up adopting him. So,
and he was how old when you got him?
He was just under 4.
Okay.
Yeah, he turned 4 a few months after I got him. So he was pretty young and very damaged.
How old is he now?
He just turned 30.
Wow.
Which is remarkable because I'm not a day over 40, am I?
No, really?
Maybe a few days over.
I'm trying to do the math here in my head as we're talking. So you guys have been together 14 years?
Coming up on 14 years, yeah.
Okay, so Ruben wasn't in the picture when...
No, he met Zach when Zach was already a teenager.
Okay.
I had, when I was a single parent for the first couple of years I had Zachary. And then I met a man who I fell in love with, and he fell in love with me and Zach. And so we jointly adopted him.
Okay.
And then 9 years later, it all imploded and it was horrible. And that's not a pretty story. But by then Zach was, we were able to hold it together through Zach's childhood, basically. So I think he had a pretty happy childhood.
Mm-hmm. Is he gay or straight?
He's got some developmental challenges. So emotionally, he's always going to be about 12 years old.
Okay.
And he's never, 30 years old. He's never had sex with anybody. He claims to be bisexual. I think what that really means is he would have sex with anyone who is willing. He really just wants to try it with somebody. Wow. But he doesn't have social skills. He's mildly autistic, and he just doesn't know how to. When he was a teenager, he did go out with this girl for a while, but it was so funny. She, teenage girl, she always wanted to have him on the phone, and he'd be like, I'm in the middle of a video game, leave me.
Right.
I'm like, you can't treat a girlfriend that way.
Right.
That's not going to work. And sure enough, it didn't work. She dumped him.
Oh. Where is he now?
He lives with my ex's mother. He's actually her caretaker. He's actually, despite his limitations, he's actually a very good caretaker. He loves her, and he takes really good care of her.
Cool.
So that works. They kind of take care of each other. It really balances out well. Mm. Yeah.
So your ex's first name was what?
Tony.
So between Tony and Ruben, was there anybody else, or are we just going to jet forward here?
I met Ruben pretty soon after the breakup, but there were a couple people I don't know if dated is the right word, but I did have a couple of experiences between Tony and Ruben. But once I met Ruben, and we were both, Ruben had also been in a long-term relationship that had ended, not great. Right. So we were both pretty tentative, but still, as soon as I met Ruben, I stopped seeing, I took my app down from, we met on OkCupid. I took my profile down, and
I think we talked about that at dinner.
We did, yeah.
Is that a thing or not? Did we decide? Still,
it's still a thing, but now I think it's more of a hookup app. When we did it, it was a desktop, thing.
Now let's see. So you must have both been living in Southern California at that point.
Yes, right? Yes, and I was living with my best friend, who I've known since I was 13. She and I just bonded in middle school and have been besties ever since. And after my relationship with Tony broke up, she very generously let me move in with her. And so I was living with her, and Ruben had this beautiful house in Glassell Park. It took us, we were dating for like 5 years before I finally moved in, because we were just we'd been burned, and we both wanted to take it real slow. And there were issues. The main issue is he had a cat that hated me, just despised me. I'm like, I can't live in a house with a cat that hates me. I'm a real cat person. I need a cat that loves me. But we solved that problem by getting a new cat who loved both of us and bullied the poor older cat. That's another story. Yeah. It was all okay. But yeah, his cat never did warm to me, unfortunately. But she coped. She just like, okay, he's going to be in the house, and I just have to deal with it.
Wow. Mm. And that's the house that's in the movies.
And that is the house that is in the movies. Yeah, Ruben generously let me shoot in his house, not knowing how chaotic that would be and how much he would regret it. Yeah, he's great. But I mean, literally, while we're shooting, we've got light stands and sandbags, and I mean, it was a death trap. It's amazing we didn't wake up and on our way to the bathroom trip and kill ourselves.
So were the sandbags for water or
to hold down to weight down the light stands? Yeah.
I was hoping it was that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that. Yeah,
because we had an episode here last month where
you did with
sandbags for
Hurricane Hillary, right? Yeah. No, we'd never had to deal with that.
All right. So what made you want to be a filmmaker?
Well, initially, I just wanted to be a writer, and I went to undergraduate. I was a creative writing major at UCLA, and I got a English degree with a specialization in creative writing. And as an undergraduate, I'd written short stories, poetry, plays, and one of the other people in the program got into the graduate playwriting program and was just raving about it. I was like, God, I love theater. I love the one class that I'd had in playwriting undergrad. I thought, I just love this. So I applied and got into the graduate program, and it was in theater, film, and television. So even though my specialization was playwriting, I learned screenwriting, I learned directing, I learned everything. And so I got a master's degree. But still, my plan was to, at that point, it's funny because even though the program was playwriting, all the playwriting teachers were adamant, like, you have to learn screenwriting. Nobody makes a living as a playwright in America anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was their advice. Like, you have to take screenwriting. So I wrote my first screenplay while I was in grad school studying playwriting. And that first screenplay got me an agent, it got optioned. I thought I was launched. I mean, we had Ricki Lake attached, if you remember her from Hairspray.
Right.
She was going to be the lead role. And, I thought I was on my way. And I, made a little bit of money, and I met a few people. The woman who optioned the project was Joanna Lancaster, Burt Lancaster's daughter.
Oh,
so she was incredible, and it was just this amazing experience. But what I didn't realize, because I was a kid, I didn't know any better, is that like 95% of the projects that get optioned never get made. And sure enough, that's what happened to me. They renewed the option once, and then they lined up half the financing, couldn't get the other half, and they just let the option expire. And I was like, oh, now what?
So for my knowledge here, so when an option expires, you have it's your property again.
Right. The rights reverted to me. But I was like, I don't, and at that point, my agent dropped me, because they thought I was going to be making all this money on this project. And when it fell through, there were other clients that, they could make more money off of. And anyway, so kind of it all went away, and it was really, it was a hard time. And I,
and you were, I'm trying to get track here. How old were you at that?
I was just in my mid-20s. I was still quite young.
Okay.
But so I kept going, and I pushed ahead, and I tried, I kept writing. And at that point, it just never even occurred to me to direct. Even though I'd done a little bit in grad school, in my mind, I was a writer. I was just a writer. Right. And it kept pushing, and finally I sold a script, and it was to ProSieben, which is the sort of German version of HBO. It's like a premium cable channel in Germany.
Okay.
And they flew me over to do rewrites, and it was this big, exciting thing, very high profile in Germany.
And you speak and write German, of course.
Not a word, not a word. And that was the thing, is they told me, we're going to translate it, but we're not going to change a thing. It's going to be just what you wrote. Yeah. So when it finally was done, I was working with the director and all. I saw the version, and it's my movie. I recognize what's happening, even though it's in German. I knew exactly what happened. And then in the middle of it, there's suddenly this like BDSM dream sequence. My character is suddenly in a leather bustier, and I'm like, what the? I'd written this sweet, kind of romantic dramedy. It was a heterosexual,
right?
And suddenly I was just. And it turned out that it was that he inserted this dream sequence as a political commentary on something that was going on in Germany that, I had no knowledge and it's just like, wow. And the other thing is that they had promised me that they were going to do a version, a subtitle version, and release it in the U.S. because it had some stars. I mean, if you remember the woman from Baghdad Cafe, Mariana Sagerbrucht, however you say her name, that... she's a very well-known actress, and she was in it. And so they're like, oh, yeah, we'll release it in the U.S. market. But I didn't have that in writing. That was just a verbal, and they never did. So, again, it didn't, I made money. I got a trip to Europe out of it, but it didn't really launch my career the way I thought it would.
Right.
And I was very upset that, despite the promises, it wasn't my vision. It wasn't what I had, So I decided to go back to school and learn more about directing, because I thought the director's the one who has the power. It's not the screenwriter. It doesn't have any power. So I went to UCLA Extension and I took directing classes and ended up making my first short film, which it was called Coffee Date. And it ended up being a big festival hit. It played at over 35 festivals worldwide. I got into festivals all over the world. I went to a gay festival in Turin, Italy, and went to Hawaii, and I just traveled all over with it. It was a blast. And everybody kept saying, oh, is this going to be a feature? Is this going to be a feature? And at first it wasn't, but then the more people asked about it, I was like, So I went and wrote a feature script, and that ended up being my first feature, Coffee Date, with Wilson Cruz and Jason Stewart and Sally Kirkland, Jonathan Silverman, Debbie Gibson's in it. It was a huge thing, and it was so much fun. And
was Wilson Cruz a thing at that point?
Well, he was very well known from My So-Called Life, but that it was many years in the past, and he was known in the gay community, but not a big star. I mean, not like he is now with Star Trek Discovery. He's got quite a bit of recognition now,
right?
But he was a dream to work with. I mean, he's so talented, such a pro. So it was a lot of fun, and that launched my.
Is he single?
Last I heard, he was.
Could you get me a date with him?
That might be a stretch. I think, yeah.
He's pretty cool.
He is very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that was your first one.
Yeah, that was my first feature. Yeah, and that got into Outfest, and again, tons of other festivals around the world, and got distribution, played in theaters a little bit, not a lot, but still it's the only movie of mine that ever appeared on film. They even though I shot it digitally, the distributor wanted to. Back then, they didn't have digital production in theaters, so they made a film print. They made several film prints.
They did.
Yeah, so I actually have a film print sitting in a closet, which is probably deteriorating by now. But I have an old film.
That's a lot of money to put it on.
It is. Yeah. No, it was it was neat. They did I forget how many cities. It was just the major cities, but they did New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas. I think Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
We played in theaters for a bit.
Is anything on film anymore?
Only the like real boutique. Like I think Tarantino may still shoot on film, and maybe a couple.
When you go to a major hit,
all of this, right? Yeah, all of the Marvel movies, all that stuff, it's all digital. Yeah, wow. Very few. Just some of the art house kind of directors still love film, but yeah, it's mostly gone away.
So after Coffee Date, then what?
Then I did a movie called Tru Loved, which it was a high school coming of age story set in high school about the founding of a gay-straight alliance. And we had Bruce Vilanch was in that, Alec Mapa, and Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek. It was one of her last roles. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And, we, again, I think we only played a couple of theaters for that. That was mostly, bought by Regent here. So I think they still play it on Here TV. It comes around every now and again. Yeah, I think so.
So then what happened?
Then, I did a few other things. I did a pilot, but it took a few years. That was in the period where my relationship was breaking up, and that was also, me and my ex were heavily overinvested in the real estate market when it collapsed, which was part of, that didn't help the relationship. Let's put it that way. So it was a few years where I was, just kind of struggling to, pay the rent.
Right.
But I did, I was brought in as a director, not something I wrote, which was really, it was wild to me because, like I said, I started as a writer. I always thought of myself as a writer, but I got approached to do a project as a director that I hadn't written. And that was called Such Good People. And that was with Michael Urie, Randy Harrison from Queer as Folk. Lance Bass was in it. Just a ton of cameos. Drew Drogi's in it. Just great, talented people. So, yeah, that was my next one. And then shortly thereafter, I started my web series, Coffee House Chronicles, and that's been going off and on for almost 10 years now. I think we started in 2014. So,
are you going to do more of those?
I'm not sure. I'm working on we finished the third season, and I shot some extra footage that I'm editing into the third feature.
Okay.
So that will be coming out probably the end of this year or early next year. And after that, I don't know. I did just write a new script after I swore to myself that I wasn't going to do anymore, but I had an idea and I just had to get it out. So that's what happens sometimes when you're a writer. Things just they have to come out.
So on the Coffee House Chronicles, the two guys you have a I don't know, I can't do the timeline on there, but the two guys that are out, it was during COVID and they're talking and blah 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 blah.
Oh yeah, the COVID
so
time.
Kyle,
yeah.
somebody is
Kyle Singh and Nicholas Downs.
He seems pretty cool.
Yeah,
he's in your last movie too.
That's right. Yeah. Kyle and I are friends.
I like that. I like that character.
Yeah.
So then what?
So then, like I said, the web series has kind of been ongoing as I've done other things over the past few years. But I got the idea for Say Yes and just really wanted to do it. It just really, even though everything I'd done before then had always been pretty comedic. I mean,
right.
Tru Loved especially had some serious elements, but essentially a comedy. Such Good People is a screwball comedy. I mean, it's really a throwback to those 1930s, just zany comedy, not at all realistic, but just super zany and fun.
Right.
Say Yes is a serious drama. I mean, there's a few light moments, but it's dealing with literally life and death issues. It's serious. But I thought I was ready to do that, to try that, and so I decided that was going to be my next project. And
where'd you get the idea for that?
It was a couple of things. I believe it or not, the kernel of it came from a Reddit post. I had read about a straight man who got seriously ill, like life-threatening illness, and his best friend moved in to care for him during his recovery. And the friend also straight, but in the process of them living together and him taking care of his friend, they ended up falling in love. And it was this interesting post about, I still feel like I'm a straight man, but I'm in love with my best friend and we're trying to make a go of it. And I thought, what an intriguing idea.
Right. It is.
And then sort of simultaneously at the same time, not a close friend, but somebody that I'd known for many, many years, this beautiful, wonderful young woman developed breast cancer and ultimately succumbed to it. And so rather than going with the premise that the Reddit, which I probably would have had to pay for the rights, I didn't want to do that. So I came up with this idea that, what if, this man, straight man, and it's his wife that gets sick, and the brother comes in to help care for her, and then in the process, those two end up falling in love. So it's this kind of very unusual premise that I've had some people, criticize, but it is based on something that, did happen to these guys. And I've talked to a lot of other people that, life sometimes is just not what you expect. You think you're one way and then something comes up and your life takes a different turn. So
I thought I just like strawberry Jell-O, and that lemon Jell-O is really good.
Jell-O is really good. Exactly. I also, this is, the other direction, but I met this, a gay man once, and, very, out, fairly flamboyant gay man. And he'd only come out in his mid-30s. And so I was like, well, so you're saying you were in the closet. He's like, no, I was straight. I really only had attractions to women until my mid-30s. And then something changed and I started, and I'm like, did you get hit in the head? He's like, no. But, he's like, I to my conscious knowledge, I was not gay until my 30s.
So he wasn't even attracted to guys.
He said he was not aware of it. I mean, it must have been under there somewhere, right. But in his conscious mind, he was not aware of it till his 30s. And then once he became aware, he's like, oh yeah, I'm leaving that other straight stuff behind. I'm going for it. I'm gay. And I've read other stories like that where people have, sometimes it is an actual clonk to the head that triggers it. And sometimes it's an illness, some life event that shifts their whole perspective, and suddenly they just leave behind the whole way of life.
I thought the movie was very intriguing, and we've talked about this, but so I was a couch surfing super host. I don't know if I mentioned that.
You did.
Yeah, and so I've had by now probably 750 people stay in my house, and a lot of them are millennials up to maybe in their 40s. And kind of the interesting thing I've noticed over the last, I'd say 8 years on that, is that they are sexually fluid, a lot of them.
Yeah.
They're more falling in love with someone, and the equipment really is not at the top of the list, which is very intriguing.
It's a real change. Yeah. Yeah, it is intriguing. And I've talked to some of these young people that just don't even understand, why do you feel the need to, have these classifications, and why would it be a problem that you're in a same-sex relationship? It's like, it's just weird to them that for some people it's an issue.
I hope they all grow up really fast and move into politics and straighten some stuff out.
Yeah, really.
Well, my listeners, I don't have viewers, my listeners, well, you could be watching the sound waves, I guess, if you're if you're really bored. But my listeners don't know. Stuart does, but so I've watched this movie over 30 times, and we were talking before we started this podcast. I don't know what it is in that movie, but there's something that just clicked with me. And I've told him, I'm speaking to my listeners now, so I've told him that when I have all these guests coming in my house, I make them watch this movie. So it's Say Yes, and it's Say Yes 2018. It's on Amazon. I don't do ads in here, but you got to listen to it, or you got to watch it.
Got to watch it. Well, thank you.
Yeah. And so there were little things in that movie that, I'm noticing details more now, but I watched Lily, the female character. I watched her thinking. I could see it in the movie. So I remember the first scene where the guys are the husband character, Beau, invites Caden to stop and watch, to stay and watch some game he was watching on TV. And the Lily character had some kind of treatment, and she was resting in her room.
Right.
But I saw that tiny smile that she had on her face. It was like,
that's right.
I saw that.
Good.
The details like that I thought were amazing in there.
Yeah.
And even before she says something to each of the characters, she'll turn her head and you can see her thinking. I thought that was really good.
That's the mark of a good actress.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she is. She
was really fun.
Yeah.
So, quite an amazing movie.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So how long did it take you to write that?
My writing process, it takes me a long time to kind of work out the details in my head. But once I get the idea firm, I write fairly quickly. I think I wrote at least the first draft in like a month. And then I refine it, the rewriting, and I give it to Ruben, and he tears it to shreds. Ruben's my husband. No, he's a great audience because he is honest. I mean, he will tell me if it sucks, but that's good. I don't want somebody who's just gonna be like, oh, it's nice, honey. No, he'll tell me, but that means I can really trust his feedback. So I give it to him, and I let a few other people, and I go back, and so the rewriting takes months. But the initial draft, I was able to get down in, I think, a month or 6 weeks. But like I said, that's after, kind of it rolling around in my brain for however long.
How do you find the actors? I mean, do you just do a casting call, or do you know them, or what? Or both?
Well, for Say Yes, I just did a casting call. I was just really lucky that I found such amazingly talented people, and that their chemistry was so good. Because sometimes great actors just don't click together for whatever reason, and I really feel like my lead cast, they all just clicked together so beautifully.
They most certainly did.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, it was an open casting call. I just put it out there on Breakdowns. That's a casting service, and we literally got hundreds of submissions. I mean, there's so many talented actors.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, hundreds. But it was not a hard decision because even though some of them were really good, they weren't. They didn't have the chemistry. It didn't quite click. These all were like, yep, this is the one. This is the one.
So you do them individually and then you bring them together.
Exactly. Then we did chemistry reads. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So each of them read with several different actors. But yeah, once we got them all in a room, it's like, yeah, it's clear these are the ones.
So was Ruben there for that part?
Oh yeah, Ruben's heavily involved in the whole process.
Do you vote?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, he's got a good eye.
Cool.
He would be a good director if he wanted to, but I think he prefers to just help out.
Huh.
Or maybe that's just what I tell myself. I don't know. I don't need the competition. It's hard enough.
So you have a sequel to my favorite movie.
I do. Just now.
And I have no offense, but that's still going to stay my favorite because it is what it is.
That's totally fine. I'm just glad you didn't hate the sequel. That would have been
no,
super awkward.
No. it was like I was going, oh no, at a few points, because you have some twists and turns in there.
I do.
We're not going to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So talk about the sequel.
Yeah, I'm trying to even remember. I didn't necessarily have it in mind that I was going to do a sequel, but Say Yes was thankfully, well received, and I went to, a few different film festivals with it, and people were asking, what happens next to these characters? Do they stay together?
Yeah, right.
And that, do they? So I started thinking, what would be a story that would be worth continuing to tell, and that triggered. It's like, oh, what if, they do stay together,
right?
And the whole issue of parenthood. And as a gay parent myself, I thought, you don't see it in movies that often, or I feel like I haven't seen it that often. And, because it is a different decision for a gay couple. Straight couples, it's,
right.
It's almost expected, and not that they all do, but I mean, it's
right.
It's a different discussion than, it's a lot harder for a gay couple. It's a lot more deliberate. You got a lot more to do to make it happen.
What's the name of that?
Oh, sorry. It is called, it is called Baby Steps.
Okay. So
and
they're going to know what it's about then.
Yeah, exactly. The premise is kind of there in the title. Yeah.
Well, actually, if you watch the trailer, you're going to get a lot of... We're not doing a spoiler. There it is.
Yeah, it's there in the trailer. Exactly.
Yeah. So you shot that, I think the other night we talked, you said you shot it in what,
11 days. It
amazing.
Was super fast. Yeah.
Wow.
But that one, I didn't have to do much casting because I was bringing back a lot of the same cast. Right. There were some new roles that we did have to cast, but it was a much simpler process. And because I knew how professional and talented these guys are, I was confident that I could cram more pages, into the day.
Right.
So that's why we were able to get away with an 11-day shoot.
Baby Steps. How many pages is that, roughly?
It was like 99 pages, something like that. Yeah, under 100.
Does it translate roughly to, like on stage, to like a page a minute?
It's about a page a minute. Yeah, okay. It's approximately. Yeah, so the movies actually ended up being like 93 minutes, I think. Okay. So a little over an hour and a half.
Huh. Would you change anything on either of the movies if you did them again?
Boy, I mean, you always wish. I would love to have infinite money or more money. The sound is always an issue. And if I had more money, I probably would have redone some of the sound. I mean, I did do the stuff that I absolutely had to because, you have to have usable sound. But there's some stuff that the sound isn't as crisp as I would have liked if I'd had more money. That's the main thing. And of course, if you had...
Like when they're walking outside.
Right, walking outside, your car going by, that kind of thing. Yeah, so... if you could still hear the dialogue, I wasn't going to, re-record it. It's, but yeah, if I had more money, I'd probably do some stuff with the sound. And of course, if you have more money, you can get like, a Lady Gaga song in the soundtrack or something. But I think I got great music from indie artists anyway. So, but yeah.
I really like the music, especially in the first movie.
Oh, good.
I really, really like that.
Oh, good.
Oh, another question off the wall.
Sure.
So, Beau's wardrobe in the first movie changed from the movie 1 to movie 2, and it almost seemed like Caden, who is a nice dresser, I don't know if he isn't, I don't know who is what in real life, but was that a conscious choice? Or because really, I mean, the Beau character, Patrick Zeller, he's a very nice looking man, but some of his clothes were kind of baggy, but he's supposed to be like a techie, and he's like
exactly
left brain and all that stuff.
Right.
So it kind of made sense, but yet I noticed in the second one, especially in the final scene, he had like a white shirt on. He looked really nice.
Yeah. So I figured, well, first of all, it's almost entirely their wardrobe.
Okay.
I did purchase a few pieces for them, but again, in this low budget filmmaking, you kind of, have to rely on the actor's wardrobe. And luckily, Matt, who plays Caden, is, he's a very good looking guy, and he's got some nice looking clothes that show off his body. So I'm like, let's use that. That's great. Patrick, being, I think, a straight man, married with kids anyway, his clothes were a little more straight.
Dad.
But I think we did try to tailor it because in the second movie now he's, living with a man. He's, bisexual or whatever he thinks he is. But I figured he, maybe dressed a little bit gayer, a little bit snappy.
So did you help him with that? Or
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. We went through that.
Yeah. Well, in the last scene of the first movie, he looks really good. What he was wearing.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, we tried to make him look good. And
he could be Chris Maloney's brother in that last scene.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I see that in his face in the middle. He's a very good looking man, and of course, all gay guys love Chris Maloney.
Yes.
But in that scene particularly, he actually looked and sounded a lot like him.
Oh,
really
interesting. Yeah. What I've always thought is he could be John Hamm's younger brother.
Okay.
I think he's got a lot of facial similarities to John Hamm.
Oh.
But yeah, he is a very good looking guy and also just a sweetheart, really nice guy.
Well, seems like it.
Yeah. It's really nice when you cast people that turn out to be just nice humans, good people to work with. Yeah. It's really, and especially when you're going to do a sequel and bring them back, it's like, oh, I get to see them again. This is fun.
And you told me at dinner last night, they both moved to New York, the two male leads.
Yeah, the two leads after we finished Say Yes, they both ended up back in New York. They're both East Coasters. They ended up back there.
But they're primarily in film, right? Not stage.
Well,
or are they?
Patrick now he's doing more theater.
Is he?
Yeah, and he's always been both. He was with the Globe Theater in San Diego.
Okay.
So he's done a lot of theater. But they both do indie film as well. And there is, of course, a lot of indie film out of New York, too. So, but they do go back and forth. And that's,
It seems like L.A. would be the film place, though.
L.A. is definitely more film. That's more film. But yeah, for various reasons, they both, just wanted to be back on the East Coast. So, but they were, luckily for me, they were perfectly willing to come back to L.A. to shoot.
Lucky for all of us.
Yeah.
What's on the books now? What are you looking at?
It has been raised now. People are asking for a third. That you make it a trilogy, see what happens next. And I do have some ideas for that, but I haven't started writing anything, so we'll see. Other than that, like I said, I'm working on this third Coffee House Chronicles movie. I'm actively editing that right now. And then I'm writing. I've got a couple of screenplays. I've written I think I mentioned Tru Loved was a high school story. I've written another high school story. My husband thinks I'm obsessed with teenage boys, but it's not true. But there is something interesting about that sexual awakening or, that time in your life. It's very formative. And anyway, so I've got another high school story that I've written. I've got a gay update on It's a Wonderful Life called It's a Fabulous Life.
Oh. Now, are you wanting to sell these as a screenplay, or are you going to make them?
I mean, if somebody else wants to put up the money, that would be awesome. So I'm certainly open. Feel free to hit me up if you've got money. But we'll see. I'm not sure. But so I've got these couple of projects that I'm very excited about. But I don't know yet where funding is going to come from.
Right.
It's, the whole model of filmmaking is constantly shifting with streaming and, everything else. It's just, it's increasingly difficult to make money from movies. Somebody's making money off it, but it's hard. It's not usually the filmmaker, unfortunately.
So it's the big studios making.
The big studios are making a lot of money, yeah. Although they claim they're not, but.
We didn't make so many billion. We only made so many billion, right?
Well,
what do you think about the actors' strike and and all that, the writers?
Well, I have to admit, I'm not up on all the different issues involved. Okay. I was very pleased that the WGA strike seems to have been resolved. I do think we have to find a way forward that lets everybody involved make a decent living, because it's not sustainable if people can't support themselves. But I really don't know enough about all the different issues to, I just want it all to work out so we can all get back to making movies.
Do you use AI in any of what you do?
No, I do not. I am old school. People are telling me I need to utilize this stuff, but I don't know.
You like your own idea?
I like my own idea.
What do you like about Ruben?
Oh, there's so many things. He is just the sweetest, kindest person, but with an edge. Like I said, he'll tell me. He won't he won't just be like, yes, honey, that's wonderful. He's honest. We're honest with each other, which I think that's a foundation. You have to have that in a relationship.
Were you thinking about that when you put that in the second movie? Because the Bo character is talking about that, how Lily and Caden were honest.
Would call him
and back and forth with all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's super important, and it's not always easy in a relationship to be brutally honest. But I do think it's important. And actually, Ruben's not brutal about it, but he is honest.
Any regrets in your life?
I guess there's always regrets. I really wish I hadn't overinvested in the real estate market in 2000, late 2000.
So you lost money on that?
I lost pretty much everything at the time.
Wow.
So, yeah, I bounced back from it. It's all fine, and I guess I learned stuff. But it would have been nice to learn that without losing all the money. So that's a regret. But mostly, no. I mean, I feel like I've been very lucky in my life. I've got some great friends. I've got a great husband. I've got my health. I've got 2 wonderful cats. Yeah. No, I mean, all the regrets are fairly minor. The main reason I wish I could go back is because I miss not having everything ache. I'm at that age where I've just got aches and pains, and I'm like, I remember a time where I didn't ever think about my back. My back was just there. It was just a part of my body. It wasn't, right. I never had to think about it. Right. Now it's like, oh, am I sitting too long? Am I sitting in the right position? Oh, yeah, just constant, I've had lower back issues since my late 20s. So,
wow.
I was a gymnast for 10 years, and they didn't tell me that, all that tumbling was, basically compressing all the cartilage in my joints. So yeah, I started having back problems, and have had them off and on since then. But
like, if you were talking to my people, which you are,
which I am,
what would you say to them? I've learned this. This is what's come out of my life.
I guess I always knew to some extent, intellectually, that you shouldn't worry about what other people think. But, when you're young, it's hard to not, and especially when you're trying to meet people, you want to be attractive, you want to put your best foot forward. But really, it's like other people don't think about you nearly as much as you think they do. And what they think is just not nearly as important as what you think of yourself.
Right.
So, I just wish I'd worried about stuff less. I've always been a worrier, and
Well, stop it.
I know. Well, I try. I
told him to stop.
Ruben is good about that. He sets me straight, and I think I'm better than I used to be. But the worrying doesn't help. It really doesn't.
Well, on your point, so I was involved with the Gay Fathers of Seattle for like 10 years.
Oh,
and I
nice.
was president for a couple of years. But so it's basically midlife guys coming out,
right?
And most out of it, obviously fathers. So I've got kids, and everybody worries about everything. And really, when it comes down to it, most of the time, the kids' thing was, how does this affect me?
Right.
They don't really care about you. But it's like, well, how does this affect me?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So don't worry. What else? Anything else you've learned?
Oh, boy.
I mean, you are 40 now. Come on. You got to have some life lessons.
I must have some wisdom to pass on.
Yeah.
Be bold. I think, when I've made the bold choices, I guess even the real estate was a bold choice. But mostly it's like that's where the really exciting things have come out of, is not being timid, not doing the safe choice. Even as you know, deciding to live your life as a gay man, that's a bold choice. But man, it's sure better than living your life in the closet.
Right.
So be bold. I try to be bold. I'm not always good at it, but I try.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you for having me. This was
absolutely wonderful meeting both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Wave goodbye, Ruben. Ruben's waving goodbye. Thanks for coming in. It was great.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.